Hi everyone, Internet Vicious Book Reader here. Today I want to talk about Art on the Movement of the Earth by Uoto. Yes, the manga as the title of the video is loosely based on the whole thing with Galileo versus the Church. It even had a lot of torture scene that is founded during the same era, so trigger warning for those. But before we go into the manga, let's go back to our actual history first because it's actually quite a wild true story that when adapted can easily become more violent. It is also the same era as the Aristotle, the Spanish Inquisition, and the witch burning after all. The whole thing is not as simple as religion are against science even back then, even if there is definitely some elements of that as a result of everything that happened, but it's more like back then in 1500, religion was a tool to gain power. The Pope and the Church can even sentence someone to hanging and burning. It's religion as politics at their peak, and politics are about holding on to power. And as a result, when truth goes against a religious view, it risks diminishing that power. Then combined with how politics is about the unwillingness to let go of power, the scholars at the time had a difficult time educating people that the world doesn't revolve around us. The problem actually starts early at around 130 AD, when an Alexandrian named Ptolemy made a theory of geocentrism, which means that the universe, the moon, the sun, and all the other planets revolves around Earth. The theory had a lot of plot holes because it only works after omitting a few important details like the existence of the moon among many others. The theory has been around for a while, but then around 380 AD when St. Augustine started building Christianity philosophy, he also took the word of Ptolemy and incorporated them into Christian philosophy. Reading Ptolemy's research that is titled Research on Heavenly Body and knowing the significance it can bring to religious belief, he accepted Ptolemy's theory as gospel without fully knowing what it means, just like the rest of the world at that time. Thus, geocentrism for hundreds of years became the truth of the world. And at that time, the only one that challenged this view is Ibn al-Haytham, a Muslim scholar that becomes the father of optics that recognized that Ptolemy ignored altogether the position of the moon. But since the East and West are even more separated at that time, this criticism didn't go anywhere, or if anything, criticism against geocentrism became blasphemous because of it maybe. It took a long time of work from Albert Brudowski and his student Copernicus, then Thomas Harriot, Galileo, and Kepler. Thanks to them and many others, we finally got our moon back into the solar system and we course correct to heliocentrism. But even then, what happened to most of them is not all well and done. Copernicus, that started the whole thing, was considered heretic and his teaching was equivalent to forbidden knowledge. Harriot got put into prison for a while, especially since he knew Guy Fawkes, the guy whose mask got more famous after V for Vendetta. Then Galileo was put in a one-sided trial in 1633, where he avoided getting hanged just because he pled guilty and denied heliocentrism. He is then put into house arrest until his death, where the church also denied his family his dead body for a while. And lastly, Kepler's mother was accused of witchcraft and put to jail. She only got out of prison years later and died soon after her release, while Kepler was left penniless until his death because of his defense of heliocentrism. And with that long history as a background, we go into the manga arc. It opened by an inquisitor torturing a scholar that is studying the forbidden knowledge. He is planning to get a record of the heretic study in order to burn it along with him no matter how many nails he needs to take and wait for them to regrow. Then we go to the class where our main character is studying. He's a kid named Raval. Here we also got the confirmation that we are dealing with people believing in geocentrism. We got a very good use of exposition here where we know that Raval is smart enough to be chosen to go to university. We know how easy it is to commit blasphemy in the class due to some kid using the wrong word to praise him. We know about the word without it feeling too much like the manga is vomiting information on us. Before the class is over, the teacher comes over to Raval and told him that Raval should stop studying further about the star, and it's not a suggestion, it's a command. He also told him to pick up his friend who's just been released of a heretic prison. Raval still really wants to study about the star, but on his way to go pick up Hubert the heretic, he comes across a public execution of heretics by burning. It's not the most ideal word to ignore a priest comment. Raval picked up Hubert, a very large scholar whose body has been damaged by the Inquisition. He saw Raval nose on the star and decided to threaten him to study astronomy together with him. Raval can just report him as an unrepentant heretic and be done with it, but curiosity killed the cat, so he decided to go with Raval. They had a conversation about Earth and the sky, and Hubert asked Raval to draw what space would look like in geocentrism, a convoluted drawing that Hubert rejects. This is when Hubert introduced heliocentrism to Raval, about how Earth is not static unlike what geocentrism teaches him, but is actually moving just like the rest of all the stars. it's the sun that is the focus of everything instead of Earth. Raphael at first refused to accept it because it is blasphemous, but on his way home he had an epiphany about the movement of the space, how the stars sometimes move backward instead of forward if viewed in geocentrism, and drew what space would look like in heliocentrism that explains why some planets feels like they move backward. This drawing caught the attention of the Inquisition, which Hubert took the blame, and because the church doesn't give a third chance, Hubert burned as a heretic. Raphael decided to continue his work. It looked like for a little bit that he will become the main character, but it doesn't take long for the Inquisition to get to him because the priest of the place where he stayed reported his research. Raphael was put on trial, and unlike Galileo who decided to deny heliocentrism, Raphael refused to deny it. Raphael got his last meal, which is just a bottle of wine, and decided to follow the footsteps of Socrates and drank poison along with his wine so he can keep the heliocentrism research hidden in safety. He goes out believing that curiosity for the truth will one day finish the research that Hubert and him had done so far. With the death of both Raphael and Hubert, the stake of the story is raised because now we know that it's the type of story where the character's safety is not high on the priority list. But we also knew that the protagonist will have to be people with the conviction to do what it takes to bring the truth to light no matter what. We then move to 10 years later. Racism is at its peak and the peasant live a horrible life compared to the luxurious life of the aristocrat. Geocentrism was used to help justify this life by saying life is supposed to be horrible on Earth since everything falls in Earth. Two peasants, Oxy and Gallus, worked in a guild that specialized in mortal combat. One day they were tasked to help transport a heretic. Oxy mostly only goes with the flow since he's just trying to pass the Earth as quick as possible to go to heaven where he can finally be happy. He literally just lives to die. But Gallus is a more optimistic person who is trying to see beauty in the world he lives in. They talked with the heretic and he managed to convince Gallus that he knew of this beauty that he is seeking for, and they decided to escape the Inquisition together. Of course they were chased by the Inquisitor we are most familiar with, Novak, and the heretic was killed trying to protect Oxy. Oxy and Gallus managed to escape and found what the heretic's treasure is, the study that Raphael and Hubert left behind. They were about to go with their finding of heliocentrism to Balani, a priest that Gallus trusted, but unfortunately when they passed a bridge, the bridge fell off along with Gallus. The one who inherited Raphael and Hubert's vision of heliocentrism is not another scholar, but it's Oxy, the illiterate peasant. With him in the party, we can get an explanation on why certain finding in the research is important by having the other party member explain it to them in simpler terms, and as a result, it's also much easier for us the reader to understand since they're not explaining it to another scholar. But in the story, he also gave a bigger contribution to his party. He's the only one who had a great eyesight and a practiced one at that time since he's a duelist, and his eyesight will be important for the research where they need the observation part of the research. And his role as an observer and as a student will impact the story so much even later on in the story. But for now, he goes to meet with Balani, a priest that is trying to get the world to acknowledge his superior intellect. They then recruited another person with goodwill hunting style by posting tests on town boards and hoping to get someone answering them. The one that answered the test is a woman named Jolanta, someone who cannot be a scholar at that time because of her gender, and with her help they get to meet Pias, one of the most successful scholars of their time and the one who have dedicated his whole life perfecting geocentrism and try to change his mind so they will have access to his library. These are the people who inherited the will to find the truth and tell it to the world. This is actually one of the most interesting new seinen that has gone too underrated. The cast of the characters are all interesting and it's such a clean short story that rarely happen in manga storytelling. Every chapter and every panel feels like they serve a purpose where one thing led to another in a way that just makes sense. It helps that all the character writing is solid. Every character has their own conviction and reason on how they got involved in the story that makes sense for the characters and the action they took in the manga. Then despite it being fiction, the story is grounded in so much reality and it makes it all the more compelling as an alternate history manga. One of the most interesting characters I think is Novak, the Inquisitor that opened the story. He'll become the main antagonist from start to finish, but he's one of those antagonists that if things slightly different might not be a bad person. He's questioning things the right way, but is also so blinded by his own conviction and belief that he doesn't mind some hypocrisy like the bishop that should be celibate having a son that is in a high position in the church. There are points in the story that if things slightly differ, he could have taken a different path than a villain. But make no mistake, he is the villain in the story. And the author doesn't try to present him as anything else but a villain, since that's the role Novak has taken for himself. He's blinded by his own belief of how things should be, and as a result caused most of the tragedies in the story. He's such a good villain. And then all the philosophy and the science in the story and the strong theme in the duality of man, transfer of knowledge that won't be stopped, all are presented in this strong set of combination that makes for great writing. I hope this book gets more reader once the Madhouse adaptation came out. I give this a 4.75. What do you think? Let me know if I miss anything, so leave your talk in the comment below and subscribe to the channel. That's about it. See ya.